Good evening, everyone. Uh, I've been tasked with introducing the chief guest of the day, Mr. Benny Joseph. It was absolutely by chance that we came across Mr. Benny Joseph. We are fortunate to get him here. And like Xavier said, it was because of a post by our member, Mr. Krishnadas. He had posted a list of top 100 global cities in the world, which are tourist attractions. And he had asked a question as to how many have the people visited, how many have the members in the TMA group visited, and people started responding to that. And I mean, so like said, sir and Anand Menon sir, and so most was Gopal. It's a very interesting post or activity in the TMA group. What I did is I shared that in a couple of my groups where there were travel enthusiasts, and to see who tops the list. And then I posted. I ran a kind. I was in the other group. I have a person who's gone to 40 cities and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Joy Joseph said, "I know a person who was top 100 global. Wow, we should that gives you a lot of varied perspective about the world, and we should get him into TMA." And then I got in touch with Mr. Benny Joseph, and he agreed. He kindly agreed to do the session where he would share the experiences, the varied perspective that he learned through both traveling as well as the avid reading habit that he has. So he has a double advantage there. He is a voracious reader, and he likes to travel as part of his job, as well as in his own personal capacity. He has traveled a lot. Speaking about the job, he's manager, the technology field services manager with the Hilton Group based in Sydney. And he takes care of the Australia and Asia region. Combined, it is known as Australasia. As part of his job, he has traveled far and wide, ASEAN countries, Australia, needless to say, then Dubai, and I'll let him talk to it, right? He's traveled far and wide. He takes care of the technology field services for Hilton. So whenever a new Hilton hotel opens somewhere, he has to go there as part of setting up of the technology infrastructure. He has to work with the different project groups and the consultants involved. So I wouldn't delay it further. We are all eager to hear from him. So over to you, Gio. I'll let you take it from here and hand over to Mr. Benny Joseph.
Yeah, thank you. Now the online platform is open to Mr. Vinay Joseph. We are all keen to hear from you.
Okay. Okay, let me just share my screen. Hope I'm working in the technology, but hope this technology works. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
1 second. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Okay. Anyway, it was a very nice introduction, and I really would like to express my thanks to TMA for giving me this opportunity to present this webinar session, especially to Vice President what was Vinod, and then President Mr. Xavier, and Vinod, and then of course Francis. And specifically, I mean, I was quite impressed, Mr. VM Xavier, that you were keeping very good track of Hilton hotels and current standing. I did not know that that you were fully aware of that. So that's a great update. Yeah. I mean, as Francis was saying earlier, it all started actually as a casual conversation with Joy, my cousin, and then later Francis joined, and then it all was like talking around regarding travels, and then how many or various countries and cities that I have visited. So it all, and before I knew it, I was asked if I could share some experiences over a casual session on the webinar with the TMA team. And then, so here I am sharing some of my experiences, some small incidents, some stories, trying to explain how these travels can make one modest and humble. So here we go. So that's, I hope you can see the screen. That's a little bit about me. As you can see the screen, the second screen. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, as Francis was saying, I've been living abroad, or rather, I've been a Pravasi for 30+ years, and I've worked in many cities, many countries, ranging from Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Delhi, Sydney. Currently in Sydney with almost nearly 5 years now. And as all of you know, Sydney is unfortunately going through a very heavy lockdown at the moment. So I'm working from home for the past few weeks. And obviously here, all of a sudden, COVID spread has increased here. So until end of this month, it's fully locked down. So as you can see, I'm feeling pretty bored, almost 18 months, no travel, no international travel, but I'm optimistic. The future should be optimistic. So let's hope. Unfortunately, no international travel is said, and then let's hope we'll all come out of this difficult and, predicament situation very soon. So, you must be wondering why this particular topic of travel, or a session on travel, when all of us are in the middle of this ongoing pandemic for quite some time. And obviously a discussion about traveling may sound a little bit out of context, especially when no one practically is able to travel these days as easily as before. When I look at this session to myself, there is one good reason that pushed me actually to do this session. One was like to rekindle, the desire and the void in me to travel again, or perhaps to reminiscence the thoughts of travel from the past. So in either way, I thought, okay, why not? Let me agree and then, do this session and see. And also, at the same time, I thought maybe I can also share some glimpses from those days of my travel in order that spark of the travel still active and alive within me. So why do we all travel? I mean, it was this 18th century French writer who once said, travel makes one modest. Travel makes one modest. You see what a tiny place you occupy in this world. I mean, it's not really hard to understand. Modesty itself means being unassuming, means accepting our limitations and being unpretentious and humbly acknowledging the limit of our abilities, I believe. We, obviously in Hilton, in the hospitality field, we always say the desire and appetite for travel will always come back, no matter whatever the circumstances may be, even if suppressed for a long time. So that's kind of our motto within the hospitality industry. So if no airlines, no hotels, and no hotels, so it's always the desire, the passion for people, even in this pandemic time, when it is over or before it gets over, people will always want to travel because that appetite is deep inside, enrooted. So why does one, or what does modesty or humbleness got to do with travel, you may ask? Yeah. I mean, it's quite obvious. Yep. Travel can be truly an eye-opening experience. Not only one can learn and experience about different cultures, traditions, but also become a part of that rich history of each place that you visit. Think about it. When we travel more and more, literally, we see the world as it is, and our horizons expand, and we become more and more inclusive in nature, I think, and our perspective change, and we change. In my own experience, one becomes quite modest and be humbled when realize the fact that how small we are and how little space we occupy in this vast, wide world. So, as just an add-on, we, the Homo sapiens, so in general, have this innate urge to move around and to connect with people and cultures around us, always with a desire to be mobile, to learn, to experience, and to enjoy. And once we step out of that comfort zone, our surroundings, and travel around the world, then we acknowledge that there is, after all, a different, bigger, and extraordinary world out there waiting to be explored. There are some key reasons, at least in my opinion, why most of the people travel. I mean, this is my personal list. According to me, people travel for all these reasons, from inspiration to adventure, to understand new cultures, traditions, or to explore, and even for multiple other reasons. In my travels, I must have come upon almost all these touch points, what you can see on the screen, in one way or other, and have thoroughly enjoyed them too. In the next few minutes, I wanted to actually recollect some of these moments and share with you some stories and some experiences. I don't want to actually make it sound like any typical tour travelogue narration, but rather be a little bit of a cynic and share some of my observations on people, places, and few bumps along the way that I've come across in my various travels. My inspiration and passion, and also take on some cultures, traditions of some countries, and about some wonderful food and some unexpected incidents and situations along the way. Sorry. I think my screen is just.
You need to share it again.
God, sorry. Is that come up again?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Is that come again?
It's coming. Yes, it has come. You see it now.
Yeah, you see that now. Yeah.
By the way, it's the I don't know if you mean to do it this way. We see the screen with the notes. It's not just the slides. It's a screen with the notes that we see.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh. How about now?
Okay, just coming up. Okay, we see the full screen, the full slide now, without the notes.
Yeah, even now?
No, I mean, without the notes, it's just the slide.
Perfect. It's perfect.
The full screen is, yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect now.
Okay, let me see. Is the screen changed now?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Screen changed.
Okay, so talking about the, okay, so I picked up on some of the stuff like, what inspires me or what the passion, and then and a couple of things which I've mentioned about some cultures and the particular nuances, what I've picked up. So let me talk about some of the, things that inspired me. There are a couple of things that inspired me from very early on. I mean, it may sound a little bit silly or rather cliched to you perhaps, but the first one is kind of dating back to my college days in Thrissur at St. Thomas College. There was a professor we had at St. Thomas College. His name, this was in the late 70s. We had an English professor. His name is Edmund Peters. I'm not sure some of you may have, remembering, that person who studied during, late 70s or maybe earlier than that. He used to teach us great poetry, great poems by, Keats, Byron, Shelley, Wordsworth. And I'm sure those who have studied those times would have actually gone through all these poems as well. There was one particular poem by Wordsworth, William Wordsworth, called Daffodils. Now, I don't know what was so special about this poem, or if it was the way the particular professor actually taught us in class, or just the lines, or the wonderful visuals it actually created. Something impressed me so much and got stuck inside of me for a long time. Now, fast forward a few years later, in the late 80s, I happened to travel to England and go to an English countryside and see those visuals right in front of me. I mean, you can imagine what a joy indeed. Oops. So this is what I saw actually. When you just see a vast field of, or an ocean of those yellow daffodils, same as the poet. So you have that immense joy that rushes inside you, and that is, cannot be explained. Daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. There are two more stanzas, which you can probably Google and find out. But the last stanza was also very powerful, and it touched me, and then it actually stayed with me. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Again, this particular visual may not necessarily create any impressive impact to you personally, but that's okay. For me, this feeling and inspiration was entirely different. Hope you can understand. I'm sure you may have similar other inspirations or experiences. My next story is about a great personality, a man with a passion. This man has inspired me quite a lot. His charisma, his enthusiasm, and his enthusiasm for travel and passion for meeting new people and understand various cultures, and finally become the epitome of great hospitality. It's probably quite unlikely that you may know this person. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. He passed away some 40 years ago. His name is other than Conrad Hilton. He is the founder of Hilton Hotels Corporation. Interesting story about him. At the age of 32, in the year of 1919, he wanted to buy a bank in Texas with some money he had collected from his family. But instead, he ended up buying a small 40-room hotel in Texas, and he named it Hilton. And the rest, as you know, is history. Today, 102 years later, the Hilton Group has more than 6,500 hotels worldwide, with 18 different brands and spread across in 120 countries. Talking about Hilton, there are a couple of funny stories that comes to my mind. As I had mentioned, I have been with the company over 30 years. Sometimes when I go in meetings and announce that I've completed more than 30 years in the company, or maybe somebody in the meeting will announce the service award, okay, Benny has completed 30 years in the service award, then suddenly everyone will look at me, turn around in disbelief, and the questions pops up in their mind suddenly, or they ask, Benny, when did you join the Hilton? So knowing their intent, I know they actually wanted to know how old I was. So I always used to say, look, with a very serious face, I used to say, look, my dad was a big fan of Conrad Hilton. And then when I was 10 years old, he actually wrote to Conrad Hilton and then asked to enroll me for the Conrad Hilton Foundation and asked if they could sponsor me. And then, that's how I got a sponsorship. And then that's how I joined Hilton at the age of 10 years old. And some of them, they looked back, is it really true? Or he's just making up, until I have a big laugh. And then that's the moment they realize that I was just joking. There is another funny story about Hilton. It's not about Conrad Hilton, but it's about Paris Hilton. Not the Hilton Hotel in Paris, but the socialite named Paris with the surname Hilton. Some of you know, if you follow internet, a few years ago, there was a big controversy. She became very controversially popular and all over the headlines, whether for good or, bad reasons, whatever. Anyway, she became, like all media talk, she was the talk of media only because she had a last name as Hilton. People thought that she was the actual heiress of, Hilton Hotels Corporation. She just happened to be actually the granddaughter of Conrad, but not really the heiress. When I used to go for meetings and meeting people, while traveling, they asked me, okay, where are you from? And I'm saying, I work for Hilton. Oh, Paris Hilton. That is the first thing that comes in their mind, Paris Hilton. And say, oh, have you met Paris Hilton? And then, the discussion goes on. So as I was saying, the people seem to know Paris more than, Paris, the Hilton itself. So, or rather, Hilton came to be known much through Paris. Of course, as the saying goes, any publicity is good publicity, and there is no such thing as bad publicity. So I even recall, when some hotel owners who were seriously asked me if it would be possible to invite and get Paris to, to come down and do the inauguration of their properties. So, that's how serious they were. When they know Hilton, it's always connected to Paris Hilton. Now, you can Google and find out why she was controversially popular. Moving on, culture and some tradition. So the next thing which I quickly wanted to go through is about some interesting traditions, about cultural nuances, practice in some countries. There are many to mention, but some of these only kind of intriguing or rather surprising to me. So I just picked up and then thought of sharing here with you. When it comes to culture and traditions, I think for me personally, there is one place that really stands out from the rest, and that's Japan. There are many reasons that I can actually count on. Japan still is on top of my most favorite countries that I have traveled so far. I mean, I don't think I will ever get tired of traveling to Japan because that culture is very, very unique, unlike any other Asian countries and cultures. So, but interesting. Let's talk some interesting things which which I've actually picked up or observed from Japan. I mean, you all know, Japan. Most of us have heard about the, Japanese punctuality, whether it's the precision about their Shinkansen or, the bullet trains, or, doing things in general, or when it comes to hygiene, all their precision, everything is top notch. But there are some of the facts that I've observed during, various of my travels there, visits, especially attending meetings and trainings in Japan. I mean, Japanese people, that they bow to others, but there is always some degree of that bowing or bending of the body that differs. If the person in front of them, if in hierarchy or in ranking or in position, if that person is higher than them, the way or how low they bow is actually matters. If the person opposite to them is on a high ranking person, they will bow as much as down multiple times, and the other way around. So if the other person is on a lower rank, you only just bow quickly. Interesting thing. And the other thing which I've noticed in meetings, when there is a group meeting or training session and things like that, and if, let's say, if the manager and the assistant both are participating in the meeting, the interesting thing is that the assistant will never ask a question or raise hand to ask a question if the manager has not spoken yet. So, you can imagine, it's actually, when you go from another, kind of culture or another area, you are in a meeting, you are in a training session, everyone has the right to ask questions or raise hands and things like that. But no, not in Japanese culture. In Japanese culture, if the manager is sitting, the assistant will not ask a question if the manager has not asked, because hierarchy is very important. It's disrespectful if the assistant asks the question before the manager. Funny or interesting, I thought. And it's the same way in that meeting. If both the manager and the assistants are participating in the meeting, the assistant cannot leave the room unless the manager leaves first. So interesting cultures I noticed. And also sometimes like handing the business cards, in many cultures, just hand over, you take the business card and you give it with one hand. In Japan, it is disrespectful. You need to give it with both hands. So some interesting things, these are some interesting things. And the other interesting things, what I've noticed in Japanese culture, as per their culture and tradition, Japanese people are very seldom, they will show their true emotions or feelings on their face. You can never find out. I actually, if I recall, I read in a sort of a body languages book that there are people who are very highly expressive in their facial expression, emotions, with the hand gestures. And if I recall, I think Egyptians and Italians, they have been ranked as highly, emotional and expressive when they're actually showing or talk. And on the contrary, Japanese are totally, no expressionless. Almost poker face, you can say. In Japanese culture, most probably silence is golden in their culture, so maybe that's why. I also see, because I've seen and worked with them, and in many countries, so Japanese are pretty much very homogeneous in nature, because they as a group, and they open up only towards their own team or people, especially when they are in a foreign country. I remember when I was working in UAE in Abu Dhabi, we had a special guest relations officer, Japanese guest relations officer, only to talk grievances and complaints from the Japanese, because that they will only open up with them. And I've also remember noticing they will complain. They are very seldom complaint makers, or they will never make any big show or drama, or they will come and say something. Look, there's a bulb is fused, or maybe there is a faucet leaking or something. If no one pays attention or doesn't do anything, you will never see them again. They probably will never come back. So this is the kind of cultural differences what I've actually noticed in my various. The other country where different set of cultural differences is one is Japan. sorry, not Japan. Japan is what I mentioned, is Egypt. Interesting place. Egypt has always, fascinated me. This must have been a country that I've traveled most in back in the days when I was working in UAE. This is especially during the 2000s. I mean, as you know, Egyptians' history is 5,000 years old, or even more than that. Even much before Christ era. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo alone is the oldest, probably the oldest archaeological museum in Middle East, housing the largest collection of, the pharaonic kind of antiquities in the world. I think over 120,000 pieces of antique items displayed in there. There is something I always joke about, the way they charge tourists in that country. I can actually explain this. It's a funny situation. When you go to the when you go to the Egyptian Museum, they charge you about $25, if I recall those days. And the best attraction inside, other than all these 120,000 artifacts, is the actual mummy of the pharaohs or the kings who ruled there. But unfortunately, when you go and want to see that mummy inside, you need to pay another $20 or so in order to actually see that. So, and a similar thing when you go to these pyramids, there is again another entrance fee, another, if I recall, it was like $15 or $20 again. And then one of the pyramids, I don't know if those who have gone and watched these pyramids, one of the pyramids, there is a cave inside the pyramid. You could actually sneak through or kind of squeeze through inside, and there is a tomb of one of Tutankhamun, or one of the king ruled there. And then to watch that tomb with the dead body again, you pay another $20 or something like that. So I used to always joke to my Egyptian friends, they're making lots of money from tourists by showing old dead bodies of people. I mean, they never used to take it, but I used to always joke with them. Another interesting thing which I've picked up in Egypt those days, and I'm sure pretty much nothing would have changed so much drastically, is the tipping system they have. Or in other words, in Arabic, it's called the bakshish. It's so interesting. The moment you land in Egypt, the bakshish system is kicked in. The moment you ask for road directions, or you ask for a car, anything and everything, they will say, okay, bakshish, something like this. I remember a story you share, from one of my, one of our, an American guy in our group. He was actually sharing a funny story about this bakshish. So I thought it may be an interesting laugh, maybe if I share this. He was tired and fed up of this bakshish. Everywhere he went, they were asking, and then he said, hell, fine with this, I'm fed up. And then he goes back to his room and he locks behind the door. And then he says, I mean, no matter he gone inside in a few minutes, there is a knock on the door. And then, so he said, yes, what do you want? And the response was, sir, I'm from the concierge. Sir, can you please open the door? And so the guest was, a bit annoyed, and he said, yes, what do you want? Because he never wanted to open the door. And the boy said, sir, I have a message to deliver to you, sir. So now the boy wanted the guest to open the door, and the guest didn't want to open the door, fearing that, of course, the moment you open the door, he will ask for bakshish. So instead he said, okay, you have a message? Fine. Okay, push the message under the door. And the boy said, sir, sorry, I can't. And rather surprised, the guest asked him, why not? Why can't you push it under the door? And then the boy's reply is classic. He said, sir, sorry, the message is on a plate and I have to hand deliver it to you. So that means he has to open the door in order for him to deliver the message on a plate. Anyway, so that's all on Egypt. And I have another one, the place where I am, in Australia, New Zealand. I mean, you must be thinking or wondering what cultural nuances or cultural differences here. It's interesting here. There's one particular thing which I wanted to actually mention, which I don't know if any of you have heard. As you can see from the flowers here, these are the poppy flowers. So there is a particular syndrome called the tall poppy syndrome. I still remember when I came here in 2016, my regional HR, my first meeting with him. And then the first thing, he asked me, his name is Richard. So he had worked in India before, so he knew. So he said, "Hey, Benny, do you know what's the tall poppy syndrome?" And I said, "What? The tall poppy syndrome? What the hell is that? I never heard of that." So he said, "Look, there is something called, there is a cultural, phenomenon, if you are a manager and then, the subordinates, people feeling jealous or, whatever, they can holding back on directly attacking, those perceived to be better than the normal, So in other words, they classify it like expectation that when poppies are grown, our poppy plants are grown, they're all meant to grow together at the same height, same level. So if one grows too tall, then they cut that down in order to make them all on equal size and then equal height. So in other words, what they wanted to actually say that, the culture is more about mateship. I mean, that's how in Australia, everyone is a mate, whether the manager will call the subordinate and the subordinate will call the manager. Everyone is a, "Hey, mate, how you doing, mate?" It's a mate culture. So if you try to be bossy and arrogant as their manager, then it will not be tolerated well, and you are cut down to the size like a tall, poppy. So that's why they always refer it as the tall poppy syndrome. So it was an interesting thing which I didn't know before. It was mostly practiced in Australia and New Zealand. So I don't know, maybe in some other Western countries also probably they do this. So moving on, expect the unexpected. I mean, things cannot be completed in a travel. Of course, travel, as we all know, cannot be a path, of a bed of roses. Some situations have, its own risks and some sudden challenges. Sometimes you will have to expect the unexpected. As the Murphy law states, anything can go wrong, will go wrong. So beware or be aware of the unknown. I mean, there's one incident I want to actually here mention, that actually really created a big jolt in me. And then I became more aware, or, I am always beware of this unknown or expect the unexpected. I mean, this happened in the 80s. I was in Amsterdam for a meeting with another colleague from the office. And we were returning back, and the return was via Frankfurt. And then, we had a stopover because those days we did not have a lot of flights. The company would only send you on a cheaper flight. And then there is a kind of, wait over, like 1 day stopover in Frankfurt. So we had to connect the flight next day. So fine. So we took the flight. We came back via Frankfurt. We arrived in Frankfurt. And then, we checked out of the airport, and then we are walking towards the hotel, which was not too far, which is nearby. So we put all our big bags in the cloakroom, and then we just had briefcases, and we were walking with all our jackets, and then it was winter or whatever, I can't recall, but we had the jacket. We just came out of the airport. It was quite a busy road, and people were nudging and pushing on the street, and then everyone was walking through the street pavement, and then suddenly we noticed there were some portions of cone ice cream splashed all over our jacket, and then we were like wondering how this all happened. We actually didn't realize at that point that this was a ploy actually to distract us or distract our attention. I mean, it was so innocently planted. So a couple of guys on our left and right, and then they said, "Oh, look, you got all ice creams or something on your jacket. Why don't you just wash it off?" And then they even very helpful, and they even suggested that there is a fast food joint. Why don't you just go and wash it off? So naturally, we entered into the fast food place, and then my friend, unfortunately, he had a lot of this cream over his jacket, so he put the briefcase next to mine, and then I said, I'm okay. And then he went down. So I was just brushing it off with my hand. My friend actually, he went down and then to the basement. Within minutes, he came back. By the time he came back, his briefcase is gone, disappeared. And I didn't even notice. And I was shocked because he came back and said, well, Benny, where's my briefcase? And then that's the point when I was looking and I said, gosh, it's gone. I mean, classic. I mean, we created such a panic inside that fast food restaurant, and then, created big fuss, screaming, shouting, no use. We went to police station, registered an FIR and nothing, gone. Unfortunately, my friend, the briefcase had a lot of valuables in there, but it was never received or found. Fortunately, because our passports and tickets were in our jacket pocket, so we could reach back on time, and then we came back on time. So that was a very bitter experience, which made me on a big shock, and I will never forget that incident. Even when I'm thinking of that, I get the chills. So probably that's one of the very harsh or reality that I'm always beware, but still you can always expect the unexpected to happen. And then I still remember when I came back to Abu Dhabi those days, and I was narrating the story to the hotel GM, my hotel general manager, and then he was like, Benny, that's it, but at least you came back. You have your passport and you have ticket. And I said, what? Then he even narrated another shocking story to me. This was when he was traveling and he was in Rome airport. And then he's actually standing in a queue to check in. So again, all fully dressed up. He also had this briefcase. So as the queue moves forward, you will lift the briefcase, put it in front, and then move. By the time he actually reached the counter and then he lifted the small briefcase and he opened, suddenly he realized the content is nothing, is some old piece of clothes or some other stuff. And then he was like shocked, and he looked at the box or the briefcase. It's exactly the same color, same shape, same brand, same make, almost the same weight, but it wasn't his. Then he realized later that it seemed when he was actually narrating or complaining the story to the authorities, there was like a big organized group. They would watch you from far and then look at, they had these, these were like branded, like whether it's a Samsonite or whatever those bags, it's easily available. You could actually replicate, or they had stock of all these and they would just replace that, without you actually noticing it. So these were the things that were happening. And then, so that made me even more aware, and then, a little bit of expect the unexpected. So that's all on this part. And then, of course, that leaves, me to the next interesting topic. I mean, which all about food. I know, any discussion with travel is incomplete without mentioning about the food that you eat. And then I always have made it a point that, I always make sure that wherever I go, in any country that I visit, any city I visit, I always try to look for the local food there, rather than, searching for Indian restaurants or Indian food. So what I actually wanted, I have some favorites, which probably maybe I'll just click through and show you some of my favorites food by name. Maybe I can actually call. So maybe, just out of curiosity, maybe I know that, maybe it's already dinner time in India. So maybe, maybe this will make you hungry and then eat more for dinner tonight. Okay. So when it comes to food, cuisine, I said, I make no compromise. That's my motto. Whether it is the sushi or sashimi or teppanyaki or ramen, from Japan, or when it comes to Thailand, the tom yam goong or the pad thai, or from Malaysia, the chicken laksa, or you go to Singapore, the chili crab, or you go to China, the Peking duck, the hot pot or the spicy Szechuan, or the meat grills from Korea. Or even if you have gone to Addis Ababa, there is a special bread they call the injera bread. There is a dish made out of that bread, and there is a long story about that. That bread cannot be actually recreated, or the grains cannot be recreated anywhere else. Or if you go to Spain, the seafood paella, or the string hoppers from Sri Lanka, or the nasi goreng from Indonesia, or the poke bowl salad from Hawaii, or the shish taouk from Lebanon, or the pole dg. There's a specific dish called pole dg in Cameroon, I remember, and there is a lemongrass salad from Vietnam. Or I mean, I'm just showing all these pretty food pictures just to give you an idea that if you are open for I'm ready to explore. There are thousands and thousands of options and foods that are waiting to be explored. So as I was saying earlier, my rule is always indulge and relish in local cuisine. And if you fall sick with food poisoning, that's okay. You can always recover. In fact, I can share a couple of incidents where I got severely food poisoned and survived, but maybe that's for a later discussion. But I never missed or stopped trying whenever I got an opportunity to taste local cuisine, wherever I traveled. I have a couple of friends who always will search for Indian food restaurants, in countries whenever we travel together. And I always used to tell them, hey, look, why? You can always eat Indian when you're back in India. Okay, so coming back towards, almost getting towards the end of my slides. So travel again. Traveling inherently means discovering and moving to new places and finding new friends you haven't met yet on the road along the way, or eating new exotic food and then learning about new things, cultures, and languages. Once you get the taste of it, your list of places to visit grows. Seriously, endlessly long. And before you know it, you are hooked for life with that travel bug. Whether you travel with a partner or with friends or group or with family, you could experience most of all these what I've showing on the screen in one way or other. However, in my personal opinion, when you go on a solo trip, you will literally experience each and every of these, expanding your personal horizon, or discover yourself, break your comfort zone, or all these. You definitely will go through all these, and even more interesting situations you will achieve. I mean, this is just some of my personal ones, but there could be other reasons why everyone travels. In my opinion, the more and more you travel to new places, your world will open up and expand much further, enabling you with situations that will make you, in my opinion, more insightful, modest, and humble towards everything in life. That's all actually from me. I actually wanted to show a couple of 1-minute videos. These guys, I don't know if you have seen it, but I actually will run it outside the PowerPoint, because actually it may not run very well from within PowerPoint. But I can give you an intro about everything I talked about, almost like 30-35 minutes. Now, all this what I've talked about probably can be summarized into these 3 videos of 1 minute each. There's one guy called Rick Marecki, that's the guy with the blue shirt. And then he and a couple of his buddies, all from Australia, they actually traveled to create 3 videos on a linear theme, like moving, eating, and learning. This was done with a trip of 44 days, 11 countries, and 18 flights. And they came up with this concept of move, eat, and learn. This is sometimes old. I mean, this was first aired maybe almost 10 years ago, I believe, and some of you might have seen this video perhaps earlier, but I guess its magic still not lost. So I will stop the share here for a moment, and then I will try to run this one more time and then share my screen. So let me see if if I can run this again. So I will just close this. Okay. Okay, let me share the screen again. Does the video run?
Can't see it.
You don't see
your
it?
Explorer screen.
It's not coming?
You can hear the video sound, but not the screen. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. 1 second. Let me try that one more time. Maybe I need to keep it in the run position and then. Do you see the screen on my screen that says move?
No, no.
No, we don't see anything now.
Okay, wait. How about now? Do you see the screen that says move?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let me just play this now. Okay. Does it run now?
Yes. Perfect.
Let me run another one. Does it come now?
Yeah, it's coming, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay. Okay, the last one now. Okay. Okay, I think that's my presentation, and then that's all from me. Unless if there are some questions, if I can answer. And thank you very much, everyone. I know there's been some little bit of a glitches in between, but hope that was not too inconvenient for you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Your sharing was quite wonderful. It's as if we had a travel across the world, and
Thank you.
you made
Thank
us
you,
really
Gio.
hungry also.
Okay.
Order the president for the comments.
Yes, Mr. Benny Joseph, as I told in the beginning, you can be another Raski Patakad or Santosh Kulagera. You can make use of your knowledge, your skill, and try to start even a TV channel.
No.
And you can just
My hope, I mean, just a response to that, my hope is that, I mean, I have actually traveled close to 60 countries almost, and maybe more cities than that. But maybe my wish is maybe in the next 10 years, maybe to double it. I don't know if that's possible. I'm looking forward. But and as I was saying in my kind of this earlier, this Corona or this COVID has really, but I'm really hopeful. Yeah, please continue, sir.
then also you took us to a different mood during the last 1 hour. You taught us the importance of tourism. You also taught us that different cultures found in different countries in the world. And also you told us that in India we have in Tamil Nadu especially, we find a village called Thiruttagram. And we thought only in India or only in Tamil Nadu we have such a village. And you said this Thiruttagram people are there across the world. You have to expect unexpected always. And
Yeah.
also you showed us the mouth-watering dishes, because we are very much eager to go home to take our food, because you made us hungry because of
Feel so hungry,
yeah, you made us hungry because of the mouth-watering food that you explained. And of course, this is a wonderful experience for us. And once this COVID is lifted, we people used to go for travel. We went to Hong Kong, we went to China, we went to Macau, we went to Kazakhstan, we visited so many other places. But for the last 2 years, we cannot move to any other countries because of this COVID. Otherwise, we would have visited some other countries. Okay, thank you for your
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Xavier.
Yeah, information, and we really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
also, I thank Mr. John Joseph for bringing Mr. Benny Joseph to the before. Thank you.
Yeah, time for interactions.
Thank you, Gio. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. My name is Anantaraman. Really
Yes,
enjoyed your lecture. I have traveled to only 57 countries. I think I'm much below you. But you talked about the bakshees in Egypt. I feel in America they give some fancy names and collect $10 to show you the bathroom of George Washington, or a 150-year-old church in California. They collect $5-10, giving some fancy name. That's the only difference. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, great to see you, Mr. Anantaraman. Yeah, I mean, I know you. I'm sure you would have similar experience. Covering 57 countries, almost what?
Plenty, especially South America and all was really
correct, exactly,
most memorable. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. My question is, the top 3 pick of the 60 countries, which would be the first top 3, and unsafe, which are from the bottom 3?
No, there are countries. I didn't actually mention some of the other bad experiences that I've actually felt through. There are some countries you could actually backpack and travel solo without any challenge. like pretty much of Europe, except that situation or whatever that I've mentioned in Frankfurt or whatever, you'd be a little bit careful, then you're fine. And pretty much Australia, New Zealand, as a single person, you can backpack and then go anywhere, like in US or. But there are some countries like Nairobi, for example, never even try to go and walk in the street, even during daytime. I have had real bad experiences in Nairobi. You only go out as a group. And then I've been to a country called Papua New Guinea or Port Moresby, so dangerous place. I mean, you can actually see crime rate and then everything. I mean, women from our offices do not want to go there. They said, sorry, not to Port Moresby, because, in terms of rape and everything, it's a totally, wild, wild west. There is no law, nothing. So, I mean, for me, the countries I would always never get tired of going is, as I mentioned, on my top list is still Japan. I don't know, for some reason, the culture is very, very fascinating. And it's always, unlike any other country in Asia. So they're unique in anything and everything they do. And there are some other countries in Europe also they have, but always Japan always comes on the top of my list. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will plan a trip to Japan.
Yeah, I mean, you see, I just wanted to add, I mean, those days in the 80s and 70s, it was always difficult because you go to a country where they don't speak the language and, you cannot communicate it effectively. But those days are gone now, I mean, with all this, your mobile phone, you can actually type what you want or say what you want, and then it translates it to you, in the desired language that you want in that country, So, yeah, so it's all, yeah. Oh yeah, I think Francis asked me a question. Which country I had my briefcase stolen? That was actually in Frankfurt, in Germany. Yeah, Francis. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Unfortunately, these kind of things can happen anywhere. But
Mr. Benny Joseph.
Yes, sir.
My name is Engineer Gopalakrishnan.
Mr. Gopal.
It's a very nice narration of your experience. Anyway,
thank you, sir.
I had an opportunity to visit some other countries, not now, about 20 years back.
Okay.
So I happened to be in Japan also a couple of times.
Yes.
From freezing Hokkaido to warm Kyushu.
Oh wow!
But it's a new, it is a new experience for me. No information for me that Boeing, there is a degree of respect also inside that. When you narrated that, the angle of Boeing is very important according to the person's status and degree.
Exactly.
Now I wonder that when I also had some boss to them reply to their respect, So I feel now that, because we don't spend as much as we can, we just go with the head only. I think now I feel that it may be a disrespect to the person.
Yeah. But
it's a new information.
Yeah. No, but they actually don't. They don't actually, take it that disrespectful if it is a non-Japanese, because they take it for granted that okay, others don't know. But when you travel many times, there are so many small nuances like this. Japanese, they don't like to be called in their first names. You know this. You most probably know this. They always want to have a san added to the name, whether it's a male or a female.
That's like there's something like a sir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So only their very close family members only call them by first name. So
even they call only so close person to their house. Otherwise, correct, they will take you to some hotel or something for
exactly.
any. Yeah, that's right.
True. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for that information. Even though late, I understood the importance of that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I'm pleased that you liked it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. There is one query which is posted here. How can we travel? How can we make a travel a more populist hobby? Which is from Mr. Anup TN.
Yeah, this making travel a hobby. I mean, there are a couple of, in some of the things which I have actually shown in my slide that first of all, you need to embrace, because most of the reason why people don't want to travel is that they think that, okay, it's a strange country, it's a new area, maybe, I will be get lost or whatever. Of course, you need to take a little bit of that risk element, and then, once you go, and then, you go to a second place, your third place, without actually you knowing it, you are hooked to, travel. So you need to make that first, step, like I was showing earlier in my slide, that you need to break that comfort zone. And then once you get out of that, and then it's a marvelous experience. The more and more places that you visit, your horizon actually expands. And then, because the moment you realize that it's not your culture or your beliefs only, there are so many different cultures, so many beliefs, so many people above, living below, so that makes you, that's why I mentioned that, that automatically makes you sort of humbled. Yeah. So
Major General Dr. Abhijit is there. Do you want to contribute anything to this?
Yeah, actually, the number of countries where I have traveled is far and few compared to the veterans in our group. But I had a wonderful experience while visiting USA 4 years back. Unlike our country, they give lots of respect to veteran soldiers, doctors, and teachers. Yeah. Starting from the entry point, we were cleared, a real fast track. Looking at my, rank as a general, we were cleared fast. And while collecting the luggage, two officers came running, and he says, "Sir, you'll have to come. There is some problem with the fingerprint of your wife, which doesn't match." So we went inside and we were waiting. Suddenly we found the officer who cleared us. He came running. He says, "How the hell you are detaining him? He's a general. I've cleared him. So we were cleared.
Wow.
Then I had a once in a lifetime experience in a cruise. We went for a Mexican cruise.
Okay.
So that happened to be the Memorial Day.
Okay.
So that initial introduction, that get together gathering, the captain of the ships, we want to honor all the soldiers serving retired from states or even from outside. So they requested, all of us to raise in our seats. There were about 20 of us. So there was a long applause. Then they said, "Now we would like to pay compliment to the next lot. Who are doctors? Please get up." I also got up again in that group. In the end, they said, those who are teachers, professional teachers, please get up. I got up in that one.
Okay.
Probably I got the longest standing ovation. Wonderful experience. Then something connected with Hilton. 2019, our medical college get together, batch reunion was held in Istanbul. So we wanted to try all Ottoman cuisine, but in 6 days, people got so much fed up. We want to have a good Indian meal, and the place we went was Istanbul Hilton, and they gave us such a wonderful Indian meal. Hilton, on the 9th floor, from there we could see the entire Istanbul. To a wonderful experience.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
So anyway, your speech was very inspiring, and only thing is, with advancing age and this COVID situation, probably we may not be able to actually,
No, see, I mean, I used to say this to my cousin Joy also. Age is just a number. Yeah, I mean, so as long as two things, that is what I'm fearing that I don't go through. One is you need to be mobile. Yeah, meaning you cannot be bedridden, and then you should not be hit with Alzheimer's or dementia. So then that as long as these two are not going to hit you, and if you have a strong will, you can go anywhere. 80, 85. I'm hoping. Yeah, I mean, like I said, my next 10 years.
Yes, Major. As Benny rightly told, age is just a number. Me and my wife, we started traveling heavily after I turned 60. Can you believe it?
Great.
We spent 2 months in New Zealand driving around 12,000 kilometers, myself and my wife. Close to that in the US, driving. Started hectically
It's
after
all,
60.
it's
Just a
all in the
number.
mind. It's all in the mind. Yeah. It's all in the mind. But of course, like the body needs to support. So like I said, you need to be mobile and you shouldn't have any, dementia or something. So that then you're good to go.
Now, India also, you find some very safe places. One is Himachal Pradesh.
Yes, I've been to.
That's the only place where the truck driver will stop, give you way, and he will probably escort you to your destination. A truck will never overtake you in Himachal if you are driving in a
Have you been to McLeodganj?
Yeah.
Okay, you've been. Nice.
Being an army.
Oh yeah, of course.
We have driven all over India. We used to travel from Udhampur to Trivandrum by car.
Oh, wow.
That is.
We have quite a bit traveled. Yeah. Okay, great. Great.
I find Himachal the safest place in India to travel.
Himachal is.
They're very, very cultured people.
Thank you very much. If there is no more interactions, we would move to the next agenda, that is vote of thanks. Xavier sir, Mr. Pradap is not there, so shall I propose vote of thanks?
Yes, Joseph, you can.
Yeah.
Joseph.
So we have witnessed a wonderful session by Mr. Benny Joseph. It is as if we have traveled through the world countries in a time of some 45 minutes, and it is a unique experience. Also, we never had this kind of a speech during this year, or I think in the years before also. So on behalf of TMA, I express my sincere thanks and gratitude.
Thank you, sir.
To Mr. Benny Joseph. Thanks a lot. So our president, as usual, is very vibrant and enthusiastic, and he has given a very wonderful address, and also given a gist of items which are going to happen in TMA, especially the flagship item of annual convention and award night. On behalf of TMA, I express my sincere gratitude and thanks to our president, Dr. V.M. Xavier.
Thank you.
And as usual, it is so nice to hear the welcome address by Engineer Vinod Manjula, our Senior Vice President. And thanks a lot for that, Engineer Vinod Manjula. In fact, I don't know who is instrumental to bring Mr. Benny Joseph. I think it is Joy Joseph.
Joy Joseph.
Yeah, I thank Joy Joseph sir for being instrumental for bringing such a wonderful resource person, such a wonderful person for sharing his experience. And thanks a lot, Joy Joseph sir. And for introducing the chief guest, our honorary joint secretary, Engineer Francis George, and I express my thanks and gratitude to Engineer Francis George. And I express the past presidents and the members who have presented here for a wonderful for coming to this online platform, and also having a very fruitful interaction after the session. So once again, I thank everybody, and I over to the president for the official adjournment of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Gio. So once again, we thank on behalf of TMA.
And one more minute, Xavier sir, I express my thanks to the sponsor of the program, Kalyan Mobiles. Kalyan Mobiles, they are the sponsors of the program. Yeah. Please continue, sir.
Okay, so once again, on behalf of TMA, we thank Benny Joseph sir for spending your wonderful time in this midnight in Sydney. Yeah, and this talk has inspired us to go to two places, one to Japan and one to Himachal Pradesh. Once this COVID is over, TMA will plan 2 trips, one domestic, one international. One trip will be to Himachal Pradesh, other trip will be to Japan. So with that, yeah, with that we can